There you go. I'll give you that. All right, guys, thanks for joining me up here. This is much nicer than being on my own. So, fantastic. Well, listen, why don't, we've got a mic there, you can pass it along, so we'll start with you, Jean. Why don't you just introduce us, tell us about yourself and how long you've been a Christian for.
Hello, I'm Jean. My husband is Peter James. My son is Nathan. I'm a wife. I'm a part-time childcare reliever. I'm also hosting Connect Group. And I've been a Christian for 5 years and 7 months and still going.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Good morning, church. I'm Naga. I work as a software test lead in New Zealand Qualifications Authority in Wellington. Been part of Hope Center for the last 8+ years. Other than that, we run Connect Group on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Thank you.
Good morning, church. I'm Dwight, husband of the wonderful Dawn, father to 6, grandfather of 2. I am a delivery type person for NZ government, so I'm a contractor at the moment. And I've been a Christian for... Doesn't work. No, it does work. And I've been a Christian for about 19 months.
All right. I'll swap mics around because it's important to hear what these guys have to say. All right, so why don't you tell us about your guys' upbringings? Did you have religious upbringing as in your families? What did that look like?
When growing up, I was a very religious Catholic. Be on Sundays, devotionals, rituals, Hail Marys, Glory Bees, and Our Fathers, almost every day we are encouraged for that. And I don't know, I was just there because, my mom and dad brought me that way, and the whole family brought me that way. But I didn't really understand why we were doing all these things and talking to all different saints. And I'm just confused, but I love my family, so I just get along.
Awesome.
Yes, definitely brought up in a traditional Hindu religious background where idol worship is very heavy, and sacrificial ceremonies and following religious rituals is quite common and pretty much, almost every day, yeah. So that's my background when I'm growing up. From India, Andhra Pradesh, near Vijayawada.
And the polar opposite of everybody else on this panel, not one slither of religion in my childhood, right up until 19 months ago. The closest I had was some neighbours who we lived with when I was a child, next to when I was a child, and they were some form of religion, but were described to me as, don't go near them, they're a bit strange, weird people. Yeah, so nothing until, I did go into churches for funerals and weddings right up until a couple of years ago, but never to any service like this, so.
Oh, let's start with you, Jean. Why don't you tell us how you came to the Lord? Why don't you tell us your story?
Well, it all started on the night that I cannot forget, when everything seems to be so hopeless. I feel so lost. So I prayed to the Lord because everything around me is just like, I feel so alone on that night. And I prayed to the Lord. Imagine facing of like a child who's on bandages for both hands and feet because he suffered for a 3rd-degree burn, and all handling without family nor friends to comfort me, and a husband who's almost like every other week is not at home. So I cried in desperation to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I don't know where I'm going. I don't even have the hope for my boy if he can use his hands, open his hands, because the damage is so bad. Both palms burned, and it took 3 surgeries for it to, the skin graft to be able to take in. So I prayed so hard. I was so desperate, so lost. I don't even know what future looks like for me, for my son. So I prayed, and so I just slept. And then when I slept, I saw Jesus. He came to me in my dreams. He told me, I will go before you, behind you, and beside you. And I was like, oh, what was that dream about? Who's this Jesus? And then I went back to sleep. And then he came. I thought it was already finished. That was it. And then when I went back to sleep, he came back. And when he came back, he actually gave me the purest love hug, the hug that you cannot find in anyone else, nor in your husband, nor anyone else. No one else, but it's the love of Jesus Christ, the peace. And that night, I woke up and I was like blown away by that. And that made my first journey on how I was able to find the Lord, because I don't know where to go. The church doesn't even have the answers to all my questions when I went here. So, he started my journey with a friend who came to this church and invited me to come to this church. And he told me, I'll just come along for the service and see what's going on. He didn't tell me about Christian and all that, so he just came to it was an answered prayer, actually, so he told me to come. And I said, I will let you know that you cannot convert me. I'm Catholic. So I gave her a nod of that you cannot convert me. So I just went in her for the sake of friendship and respect, because I trust her. So I went into this church. I went here. And then when I stepped foot on this ground, I didn't see, I had a vision. I didn't even know that was a vision. But it was the word freedom. And I was like looking at the building, and it says Hope Center. And I was like, whoa, what is this going on? And since that day on, when I stepped foot forward in this, I never left. And God gave me these experiences before the Word. The Word was like, where the Spirit of the Lord, there is freedom. So I find freedom in everything that I has been experiencing. And He is such a loving God that He talks to us every day.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But before you pass the mic, just how did your family respond? How did they respond? You were brought up as a Catholic. How did those close to you respond to your new faith?
When I asked a blessing from my family, they all told me that I'm crazy. And what's wrong with my daughter? What happened to you? Did they bewitch you? And they basically didn't speak to me for almost a couple of weeks, 2 months ahead. And my friends I've invited who's Catholics here never showed up. And basically, in my own opinion, if once you get out of Catholic religion in my own race, it means you've been like an outcast. We get nothing with you. So So yes.
Well, we honor you for the suffering that you have had, but we can see the joy of the Lord on your face.
Of course.
Yeah, awesome. Can we put our hands together and let's bless Jean. How about you, Naga? So you were brought up in a Hindu family. So how did you come to the Lord?
It's pretty simple, and I started from high school. I started questioning my father, why do I need to do idol worship? Why I need to follow certain rituals, which I was constantly told off by my father. Then in my high school, a little shy girl, she was so curious about Jesus, and she started explaining me oh, Jesus is my friend, he's my helper. That's something different to Hindu gods. You don't. It's more like a one-way traffic. You go and worship. There's nothing that comes back from the idols or any other Hindu gods. That was surprising and interesting for me. I said okay, let's keep talking, and we continued talking for the next couple of years. And she moved on to college. I moved to college. And she was encouraging me, through letters and read the Bible, go to church, and whenever she is back in our town, She was inviting like to special events like Christmas or Easter. So that's how I got to know about Jesus. And I think after uni, I moved to Chennai for my work, and it is 2010. I think after recession, 2008 is pretty bad, and 2009, the job is fine, but it's not much salary and other things. So by the way, this lady from the high school is Kathy, and she finished her.
Where are you, Kathy? Are you here?
She finished her med school, and she came to Chennai, and we both working in the same city. And she invited me to the church, so I went there, and she started helping me with reading the Bible. And I said, okay, fine, I'll be like a nice Sunday Christian, come there, be with you for that Sunday, and just go back to what I was doing regularly. And it was nice until suddenly I got a promise from the Word of God, Isaiah 61:7. It was about instead of shame, I'll give you a double portion of blessing. Oh wow, that looks pretty interesting and so good. Given that situation I was in at the start of the year, it was nowhere close to double portion of blessing. So I decided, okay, fine, let's park that blessing aside and continue with what I can do. So I was trying to switch my jobs, and which is pretty hard during that time. And I've been trying for 6 months. I think by the middle of the year, I got into a job, and they offered me more than double the salary I was getting at the start of the year. And that was double the blessing, this is something interesting about Jesus. Let me be more focused on Him. And I started going, reading the Bible regularly. And the word coming alive is something that I have experienced compared to my Hindu background, which is pretty interesting and surprising for me. And then I was able to provide for my sister's wedding, and in that year. And then myself and Kathy's parents, we discussed, and they finally happily agreed. Both my parents and Kathy's parents, not very happy from my side, but yeah, they agreed for the marriage, and we got engaged, and we were 2 by the end of that year. So that's again double blessing in our lives. Yeah. So that's that one particular aspect of reading, getting a promise from God, and that particular promise coming alive is totally a great experience for me. And I decided to follow Jesus and publicly accept Him, and I was baptized in the same year. So 2010 is pretty significant for me in my life and walk with Jesus. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And similar to the question to Jean, how did your family react to you being water baptized, having been brought up as a Hindu, and then also wanting to marry a Christian? Was that a big deal for them?
Oh, it is a big deal, absolutely. And I didn't understand, instead of shame, a double blessing. I was I have experienced quite a bit of shame at the initial days, because one thing I want to do is, my grandfather from my father's side and my grandmother, so both of them follow 2 different gods. My grandmother followed Jesus, whereas my grandfather is pure Hindu. And there is always a kind of disagreements in the family. I definitely don't want to do that. So I want to start my family as a family who believes in one God. So I was very clear about what I'm going to do with the baptism and marrying Kathy, and Christian wedding too. So that's a bit of a shock for them. So it took a few months, but they managed to okay for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Fantastic. Really good. And how have you, and is there anything that you've discovered looking in from now that you're on the inside that you weren't expecting before?
I was totally not expecting a lot of things. Even after coming to New Zealand, like the first Sunday, I came to this church and it was totally different. I was totally blown out by how the church is because I was quite shy. I just want to sit at the back of the church, leave the church as soon as the service is done. Don't want to step into cafe as well. And but one significant thing happened on the first Sunday. Like Seth spoke to us, like he don't know about us and everything, but he gave us a promise, like Haggai 2:9. From this day onwards, I will bless you. So that's a significant promise in our lives, and constantly we remember that promise, and that's really helpful, and always like that journey with the Holy Spirit, and like the way we encounter and we see the promises and Word of God coming alive in our lives, in our work, in our day-to-day activities. That's amazing. I never seen anything like that before. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Isn't it great that the shy girl who spoke to you at school, you would have never realized that you were going to marry her later in life?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We want to honor Kathy. God bless you, Kathy, for the impact that you've had. Thanks, Naga. So, Dwight, you weren't brought up as a Catholic or as a Hindu. So do you want to tell us your story of how you came to the Lord?
So 42 years in my life spent without any sense of religion or God. I was in a bit of a low point at the beginning of 2023. I was in the car on my own. As I was kind of driving back home after dropping my son off at work, I heard a voice in the back seat of the car say, "Why not go to church?" This was on a Sunday morning at about 8 o'clock. I turned around thinking there was someone in the car. One of the kids had snuck in or something. Turns out that was the voice of God, which is something pretty darn special. Now I understand that. So I went home, told my wife, I said, "Look, why don't we go to church this morning?" And not very long minutes after that, we were all kitted up, ready to go down here. I had no sense of what to expect coming into this room. I was incredibly scared. I think I spent the first 30 minutes just kind of clutching my wife's arm. See, I'm nervous now. My wife's arm, and everybody that sort of saw us could obviously tell that he was this, very terribly terrified man. I'm not really a strong man. We were met by Jody, who obviously spotted who looked like a kid in a lolly shop. He's knew someone, and said hello and was incredibly welcoming. Ever since then, I guess I've experienced an awful lot of things, the feelings, the sensations, the hot honey, hot stuff that goes with good things. Having conversations, not with myself anymore. That's quite something.
Yeah.
Realizing that you do have a voice in your head that is not your own head. That those are the sort of things that I guess I'm coming to realize now are all real. And I guess I think the only thing I really regret or am upset about at the moment is that I missed out on 42 years of this.
Wow.
That's the biggest thing. I guess similar to Naga, if it wasn't for my wife, Dawn, there is absolutely no way I would have come down here. This was all too foreign. Remember that neighbour that was weird? Yeah, you were all weird.
Yeah.
Now I'm weird too. I'm weird too. But she came down here for a good 4 years before I even looked at the place, and I had come down and seen a couple of things and sort of thought, oh, that's very nice, but no thanks. I'll just hide at home. But the support that sort of exists in my household, allowing me to kind of put myself into things, I can't do anything I can do without her. So, he's there, and without her, that's my trio.
Wow. Good on you, Dawn. That's awesome. Now, Dwight, before you made a decision to follow the Lord, or before you were convinced, you had a series of dreams. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so before I came down, or just sort of around that time, I was having a dream that I was trying to find a Bible, what I thought was a Bible, and it was this book that, if you imagine the shape of a book with light coming out on angles, it was this thing, and I kept looking for it. So I was trying to find sort of where this book would be. So I was looking in Manna and other places online trying to find this Bible. No, can't find it. Sometime after that, actually, Paul sort of pointed me in the right direction and said, I don't think that's a Bible you're trying to find, I think that's your faith that you've found. So that sort of linked up with that. Before I'd come to faith, I've had a number of dreams that have sort of indicated to me that I'm going towards something or trying to find something, that there seems to be themes around light, voices, seeds feature fairly prominently. Those sort of things kind of just on the way up to.
Amazing how God's speaking to you without you realizing it. So now you're on the inside. What are some things that you have discovered that are new? Are there things that you never knew before that you've discovered, or things that now from the inside that you never would have believed before?
You mean other than the fact that he's real?
Yeah.
I guess the big things are the sensations. No longer thinking I'm just having a hot flush, realizing that's actually something. Realizing that you can have those conversations, realizing that you can put problems, decisions, challenges to him, and he will help. He will show you. Whether he shows you this is what you need to do, or whether there's something that opens up, or a path down the side, or realizing that you are no longer on your own in this walk, in this place. That was being able to put those things together and understand how that all sort of worked. I think the big challenge is trying to find out how to get away from the earthly self and realize that you're walking in faith and do that more, because the world is very busy and the world is very noisy, and we do have to get jobs and pay bills and things like that. But when you can't, help, and suddenly help does arrive in some form, and finding those things sort of work themselves out now. I don't have to be as aggressive to try and solve problems as much as I was. Problems will be solved,
And one last question for all of you guys, and we'll start with you, Dwight, and then we'll move the mic around. What are some things that you found now that you are believers that actually have been difficult for you?
Sorry, what was that?
Now that you're a believer, what are some things that are either difficult or things that you weren't expecting that are a challenge?
I guess that the big challenge and the things that I wasn't expecting was how... I'm trying to find the words. I'm going to have a complete mind blank now. Have you ever seen that before?
It's a bit of a tough question, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, Naga, do you want to jump in, and we'll come back to you, Dwight?
Oh, absolutely. I think I have a simple answer. That's being simple. Just simple belief in Jesus, that will help. Yeah, that's what helped us. Not to overthink. And Seth keeps saying about why do you try to comprehend God with your pea brain? Don't do that. Yeah, that's easy to just believe, and as you believe, you just receive Him. And He's such a loving God. He's so faithful in all the promises and in all the words, and He's so much longing to be with us. So it's just being in the situation and believing it. That's all.
Awesome. Great.
I do want to go. Well, as I've known that being a Catholic, you always do everything by works to earn God's favor and pleasing Him all the time. But when I got here, it's through the grace of God and faith alone, and alone in Jesus Christ, that by His grace and by His strength, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I will make it as long as I'm holding His right hand. Like what He told me in my dream, I will go before you, behind you, and beside you. And I didn't even know that those words that He've given to me are the words that was written in the Bible. So why would I fear? That God's with us no matter what circumstances we are facing. So He's always with us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. So yeah, faith and faith alone in Jesus Christ.
So Jean, just a follow-up question for you before we look to wrap up. And You had a dream. Is there anybody else that was involved in the journey of your faith, or was it just through the Lord alone?
No, God sent me Christians and to influence the beliefs of being a Christian. But I said, you Christians can't fool me. You come to me with your scriptures and good works and all these kind of things. You're going to rip me off. You're going to convert me and all that. So that's the lies of the enemy. But God was so good and He knows me very well, as is in Psalm 139. He sent me the book, which was I was looking for a book one day. It was in our in our dining room. There was a book at the bookshelf, and on that book, there was a strike of a light that's coming from that book. So I took that book, opened the book. I didn't realize it was the Bible. I started reading it, and my eyes were like waterfalls. I couldn't believe that I was living in lies. I thought it was okay to do this and do that, but it's not. It doesn't please the Lord. So it took me a while to really, swallow my, and be in humble, not in pride, because I don't really know God that I'm serving.
Yeah.
When I was in Catholics, I met Jesus.
That's awesome. Fantastic. And same question to you, Naga and Dwight. So you had obviously Kathy in your life. Is there anybody else in your journey that had a part to play?
I think very fortunate enough. Both my grandmothers, they're Christians. From my grandmother from my mom's side, this is after she passed away and went to be with the Lord. After our marriage, we went to her church, like a small village church in near Vijayawada. And the pastor's wife came and said, thanks for coming here. This is an answer prayer to her. This is an answer to her prayers. She always want salvation for you and a good Christian wife for you.
Wow.
Never she told me about that.
Wow. So she'd been praying for you.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. And they're quite happy to see that. And that was a surprise for me because she never discussed, she kept the faith for herself. She never asked us to believe in Jesus or do anything. She didn't even ask us to come to the church or anything, but she was praying for us. That was very,
wow, that's awesome.
Intense.
Other than Dawn, who I've mentioned, who I'll keep mentioning, and she'll smile at me, good. I didn't have anybody in my life who was to kind of help me on this journey here until I came here. And the people that have kind of helped me and held me up and allowed me to figure this out are people like Mike, Paul over there, who just starting conversations with me and not intensively. Gary, who, wherever you are, Gary, God bless you.
Online.
Praying for healing for you, my man. And even random texts, Lewis, yesterday, sending me little notes to say, hey, everything okay? I was just thinking about you, just praying for you. So the collective kind of church community, calling out some names, but there's lots more, but it's all here.
Wow, isn't that fantastic? Hey, can we put our hands together and can we thank our awesome My Story panel? Thank you, guys.